The directive principles of state policy are a crucial part of the Indian Constitution, found in Part 4, specifically from Articles 36 to 51. These principles serve as guidelines for the government to create policies aimed at achieving socio-economic welfare and justice for all citizens. The framers of the Constitution took inspiration for these principles from the Irish Constitution of 1937, which itself had drawn from the earlier Spanish Constitution. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was one of the key architects of the Indian Constitution, referred to the directive principles as novel features. This highlights their unique role in shaping the governance of India. While the fundamental rights guarantee individual freedoms and rights, the directive principles set out the goals that the state should aim for. Together, they form the philosophical foundation of the Constitution and are often regarded as the soul of the document. Renowned constitutional expert Granville Austin described both the directive principles and the fundamental rights as the conscience of the Constitution. This metaphor emphasizes their importance in ensuring that the government acts in the best interest of its citizens and promotes social justice. The directive principles cover a range of issues, including the right to an adequate means of livelihood, equal pay for equal work, and the provision for education, among others. Specifically, Articles 39 to 43 outline various aspects of social and economic rights, such as promoting the welfare of the people, protecting children, ensuring just and humane conditions of work, and striving for a living wage. Even though the directive principles are not enforceable in a court of law, they play a vital role in guiding the legislative process and formulating policies. They remind the government of its responsibilities and encourage it to work towards a just society where every individual can thrive and enjoy the benefits of development. In essence, while the fundamental rights protect individuals from the state, the directive principles encourage the state to take positive action in the public interest. They demonstrate the vision of the framers of the Constitution to build an equitable and just society, reflecting the aspirations of the Indian people. Features of the Directive Principles of State Policy. The term, Directive Principles of State Policy, refers to the guidelines that the government should follow when creating policies and laws. These principles serve as important recommendations to the state regarding various legislative, executive, and administrative actions. According to Article 36 of the Indian Constitution, the term state in Part 4, which deals with directive principles, has a similar meaning to how it is defined in Part 3, which addresses fundamental rights. This means that the state includes not just the central and state governments, but also all local bodies and other public authorities throughout the country. The directive principles can be likened to the instrument of instructions that was set out in the Government of India Act of 1935. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar noted that these principles are effectively instructions to the legislature and the executive, similar to how the British government provided guidance to the Governor-General and the governors during colonial times. These principles form a broad framework aimed at establishing a modern democratic state by promoting ideals such as justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity, as laid out in the preamble of the Indian Constitution. They embody the idea of a welfare state, a government focused on the well-being of its citizens, rather than a police state seen during the colonial rule. In essence, the directive principles are designed to foster both economic and social democracy in India. One important feature of the directive principles is that they are non-justiciable, which means they cannot be enforced by the courts if violated. Consequently, the government, whether at the central, state, or local level, cannot be legally compelled to implement these principles. However, Article 37 of the Constitution states that these principles are essential for governance and outlines the responsibility of the state to apply them in lawmaking. Despite being non-justiciable, the directive principles still play a critical role in the judicial system. They guide courts in evaluating the constitutional validity of laws. The Supreme Court of India has often stated that if a law is designed to implement a directive principle, it may be seen as reasonable in relation to Article 14, which guarantees equality before the law, or Article 19, which protects various freedoms. In this way, these principles can help protect laws from being declared unconstitutional. In summary, the directive principles of state policy are foundational aspects of the Indian Constitution intended to promote a just and equitable society. They guide the state in policy making while also playing a role in the legal framework that upholds citizens' rights and freedoms. Classification of directive principles in the Indian Constitution. The directive principles of state policy are guidelines that aim to create social and economic justice within the framework of the Indian Constitution. Although the Constitution itself does not organize these principles into specific categories, they can be understood through three main classifications based on their content and direction. These classifications are socialistic, Gandhian, and liberal intellectual. Socialistic principles. The socialistic directives focus on enhancing the welfare of the people and promoting social and economic equality. They aim to reduce the gap between different social classes and ensure that every citizen can lead a dignified life. Key articles in this category include Article 39, which directs the state to ensure that its citizens have the right to an adequate means of livelihood and equal pay for equal work. Other articles, such as Article 41, which advocates for the right to work, education, and public assistance, also fall under this classification. Essentially, these principles aim to establish a just society where wealth and resources are more evenly distributed. Gandhian principles. The Gandhian principles are inspired by the thoughts and teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, who played a crucial role in India's struggle for independence. These directives focus on rural development, self-reliance, and promoting the welfare of the weaker sections of society. An example is Article 40, which encourages the establishment of Panchayati Raj institutions, promoting local self-governance in villages to empower rural communities. Another example is Article 46, which emphasizes the promotion of educational and economic interests among scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other weaker sections. These principles encourage a more holistic development model centered on community empowerment and moral values. Liberal intellectual principles. The liberal intellectual category emphasizes individual freedoms, rights, and the pursuit of knowledge, economic progress, and social justice. These principles often align with the ideas of a democratic and secular state. Articles like Article 14, which grants equality before the law, and Article 21, which ensures the right to life and personal liberty, fall into this category. The liberal intellectual directives aim to create an environment where individuals can flourish freely, pursue their aspirations, and contribute meaningfully to society. In conclusion, while the Constitution of India does not explicitly classify directive principles, understanding them through the lenses of socialistic, Gandhian, and liberal intellectual frameworks aids in appreciating their diverse aims. These principles provide a guiding philosophy for the state, highlighting the importance of welfare, empowerment, and the protection of individual rights. They act as a foundation for various policies and laws aimed at improving the quality of life for all citizens and striving toward achieving the goals of a just society, as promised in the preamble of the Constitution. The directive principles serve as a crucial reminder of the state's responsibility to ensure social justice, and although they are not enforceable by law, they play an essential role in shaping the socio-economic policies of the country. Socialistic principles in India. Socialism is an ideology that aims to create a fair and just society by promoting equality and ensuring that everyone has access to basic needs and opportunities for growth. In the Indian context, the Constitution reflects these principles through various articles, creating a framework for a democratic socialist state. One of the key goals of socialist principles is to promote the welfare of all citizens. This is outlined in Article 38, which emphasizes the importance of establishing a social order rooted in justice, whether social, economic, or political. The objective is to reduce inequality in terms of income, social status, access to resources, and opportunities for advancement. Article 39 further elaborates on the state's responsibilities to its citizens. It mandates that every individual should have the right to a decent means of livelihood. This article highlights several specific points, including the commitment to fair distribution of community resources for everyone's benefit. It also seeks to prevent the accumulation of wealth and resources in the hands of a few. Critical issues such as equal pay for equal work and the protection of vulnerable groups, such as children and the working population, are also addressed here. The article ensures that children are offered healthy opportunities for development and are shielded from exploitation. Another important aspect of social justice is highlighted in Article 39, which focuses on providing legal aid to those who cannot afford it. This is essential in ensuring that all citizens, regardless of their financial situation, can access justice and legal support. Article 41 guarantees the right to work, education, and assistance for people facing unemployment, old age, sickness, and disability. This guarantees an essential safety net for all individuals, ensuring they are not left without support in times of need. Moreover, Article 42 emphasizes the importance of humane working conditions and maternity relief for working women, ensuring that labor laws are fair and protect the rights of workers. Article 43 advocates for a living wage and a decent standard of living for all workers. Additionally, it promotes social and cultural opportunities, ensuring that the workforce is not just supported economically but also has access to a rich cultural life. Participatory rights are also crucial for the democratic socialist framework, as reflected in Article 43, which encourages workers to participate in the management of industries. This engagement ensures that workers have a voice in their workplaces, leading to better working conditions and productivity. Finally, Article 47 focuses on improving the nutrition, living standards, and public health of the population. This article acknowledges that health and nutrition are foundational to a person's ability to lead a successful and fulfilling life. In summary, the socialistic principles enshrined in the Indian Constitution aim to create an equitable society. By placing a strong emphasis on social and economic justice through various measures, the Constitution strives to build a nation where all citizens can thrive and enjoy a good quality of life. Through various articles, the government is guided to create policies that fulfill these foundational principles of socialism, enabling every individual to live with dignity and opportunity. Gandhian Principles in Indian Policy. The Gandhian principles are shaped by the thoughts and beliefs of Mahatma Gandhi, a key leader in India's struggle for independence. These principles aim to create a better society and have influenced various aspects of Indian governance. During the national movement, Gandhi laid out a vision for rebuilding India, which has been recognized in the Indian Constitution. Some of his core ideas were incorporated into the directive principles of state policy, which guide the government in making laws and policies that reflect these ideals. One of the important aspects of the Gandhian principles is the emphasis on local self-governance. Article 40 of the Indian Constitution directs the state to organize village panchayats. This means that each village should have its own governing body, with the necessary powers and authority to make decisions that help them govern themselves. This principle of self-governance is essential in empowering local communities and ensuring that the voices of the people at the grassroots level are heard. Furthermore, Article 43 emphasizes fostering cottage industries, particularly in rural areas. This focuses on promoting small-scale industries that can be managed by individuals or cooperatives. By encouraging these industries, Gandhi's vision aimed to provide employment opportunities and improve the local economy in villages. In addition, Article 43b mandates the promotion of cooperatives. It advocates for the voluntary formation of cooperatives that operate independently, are democratically controlled, and have professional management. Cooperatives are an excellent way for people to come together and pool their resources for common benefits, and they align well with Gandhi's belief in collective effort for mutual self-reliance. Gandhi was also deeply concerned about the welfare of marginalized groups in society. Article 46 specifically addresses the educational and economic interests of scheduled castes, SCs, scheduled tribes, STs, and other weaker sections of society. The aim here is to protect these communities from social injustice and exploitation, which is critical to achieving equality and inclusivity in society. Another principle derived from Gandhi's ideology is the promotion of health and well-being. Article 47 urges the state to prohibit the consumption of intoxicating drinks and drugs that can be harmful to health. This reflects Gandhi's personal lifestyle choices and his belief in the importance of a healthy society for national progress. Lastly, Article 48 draws attention to animal welfare, particularly regarding cows, calves, and other cattle that serve vital roles in agriculture. This article advises the government to prohibit their slaughter and focus on improving their breeds. Gandhi advocated for the protection of these animals as they are significant to the agrarian economy and are regarded with reverence in Indian culture. In summary, the Gandhian principles are not just historical concepts, they continue to play a significant role in shaping Indian policies and laws. The relevant articles of the Indian Constitution, as outlined above, reflect Gandhi's vision of a society that promotes self-governance, economic empowerment, social justice, health, and animal welfare. These principles encourage the state to work towards a more equitable and harmonious society, staying true to the ethical beliefs that Gandhi championed throughout his life. Liberal intellectual principles in the Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution encompasses a set of principles rooted in liberalism, aimed at guiding the state in its duties towards the citizens. These principles focus on ensuring justice, equality, and respect for various individual rights and social responsibilities. One major principle is the aspiration for a uniform civil code, UCC, across the country, as stated in Article 44. The UCC seeks to replace personal laws based on the scriptures and customs of each major religious community in India with a common set governing every citizen. This is intended to ensure equality and justice, particularly for women, and to enhance national integration by providing all individuals with the same set of civil laws. Another significant principle emphasized in the Constitution is the need for early childhood care and education. Article 45 mandates that the state should provide care and education for children until they reach the age of 6. This is recognized as essential for developing a strong foundation in a child's early years, ensuring they have the necessary skills and opportunities to succeed in life. The Constitution also emphasizes the importance of modern agricultural practices and animal husbandry, as articulated in Article 48. This article calls for organizing these sectors on scientific lines, which is crucial for improving productivity, ensuring food security, and promoting sustainable agricultural practices. Protection of the environment is another critical responsibility of the state, highlighted in Article 48A. This provision obliges the state to safeguard forests and wildlife and to improve the environment. As environmental issues become more pressing, This principle underlines the need for sustainable development that maintains the ecological balance while supporting economic growth. Further, Article 49 focuses on preserving national heritage by protecting monuments, places, and objects of artistic or historic importance. Cultural heritage is not only a marker of identity but also an important resource for tourism and education, making this principle significantly valuable for national pride and continuity. Another important aspect of governance is outlined in Article 50, which advocates for separating the judiciary from the executive in public services. This separation is fundamental to maintaining the independence of the judiciary, ensuring fair justice without interference from the executive branch of government, ultimately strengthening the rule of law. Lastly, international relations play a crucial role in any state's functioning, which is recognized in Article 51. This article encourages promoting global peace and security while maintaining just and honorable relations between nations. It emphasizes the importance of respecting international laws and treaties and encourages resolving disputes through peaceful means, such as arbitration. This principle reflects India's commitment to being an active and responsible member of the international community. These liberal intellectual principles not only guide government policies but also reflect the ideals that uphold the democratic fabric of India. They serve to protect individual rights while promoting social justice, economic well-being, and a harmonious society where diverse cultures and beliefs can coexist peacefully. Through these articles, the Constitution lays a solid foundation for a just and equitable society, fostering a sense of unity in diversity among the citizens of India. New Directive Principles in India. The Directive Principles of State Policy are guidelines in the Indian Constitution intended to help the government create a fair and just society. Initially, these principles were outlined in the Constitution when it was adopted in 1950. However, significant additions and changes were made through various amendments, particularly during the 42nd Amendment Act in 1976. The 42nd Amendment introduced 4 new directive principles that the government is required to follow. Healthy development of children. Article 39. This principle emphasizes the importance of creating an environment that allows children to grow up in a healthy and supportive manner. The government's role here is to ensure that children have access to nutrition, healthcare, and opportunities for physical and mental well-being. Equal justice and free legal aid. Article 39A. This principle focuses on providing justice to everyone, especially the poor. It mandates the state to ensure that legal aid is accessible to those who can't afford it, promoting equal justice before the law. Participation of workers in management. Article 43A. This is about giving workers a voice in how businesses and industries are managed. It encourages the participation of employees in decision-making processes, making workplaces more democratic. Environmental protection. Article 48A. This principle highlights the need for the government to protect and improve the environment. It includes protecting forests and wildlife, signifying the recognition of environmental issues as important for the country's sustainable development. In addition to these, the 44th Amendment Act of 1978 added another important principle. It requires the state to work towards minimizing inequalities in income, status, facilities, and opportunities. Article 38. This principle is essential for creating a more equitable society where everyone has a fair chance at success. The 86th Amendment Act of 2002 made significant changes regarding education. It recognized the right to elementary education as a fundamental right under Article 21A. This means every child has the right to free and compulsory education until the age of 14, highlighting the government's commitment to ensuring that all children receive an education. The amendment also emphasized the importance of early childhood care and education for all children until they reach 6 years of age. Finally, The 97th Amendment Act of 2011 introduced principles related to cooperative societies through Article 43B. It focuses on promoting cooperative societies, encouraging their voluntary formation, ensuring they operate independently, and advocating for democratic control and professional management. This amendment aims to strengthen the cooperative movement in India, enhancing people's participation in economic activities. These directive principles collectively aim to foster a more just, equitable, and sustainable society in India. While they are not enforceable in a court of law, they serve as vital guidelines for government policies and actions, shaping the nation's progress and development. Understanding these principles is crucial for grasping how India strives to fulfill its constitutional obligations and the welfare of its citizens. Sanction behind directive principles. The Indian Constitution, established after the country's independence, divides the rights of individuals into two main categories: justiciable rights and non-justiciable rights. Justiciable rights are those that can be enforced by the courts, while non-justiciable rights are not enforceable in a court of law. This classification was recommended by Sir B.N. Rao, the constitutional advisor to the Constituent Assembly, and was accepted by the drafting committee. Fundamental rights, which fall under the justiciable category, are outlined in Part 3 of the Constitution. They include rights such as the right to equality, the right to freedom, and the right against exploitation. On the other hand, directive principles, which are non-justiciable, are specified in Part 4 of the Constitution. These principles serve as guidelines for the government to ensure social and economic justice and to promote the welfare of the people. Even though directive principles are not legally enforceable, Article 37 of the Constitution emphasizes their importance. It states that these principles are fundamental for governance, and it is the duty of the state to apply them in the creation of laws. This means while courts cannot enforce these principles, they still carry a moral duty for the government. Public opinion plays a significant role in the implementation of these principles. Distinguished legal figure Alladi Krishna Swamy Iyer noted that no government accountable to the people can afford to disregard these principles lightly. Similarly, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chief architect of the Constitution, pointed out that a government that is elected by the public cannot ignore the directive principles without facing public backlash during elections. This emphasizes that electoral accountability acts as a key motivator for governments to respect and work toward these principles. The framers of the Constitution decided to make these directive principles non-justiciable for several reasons. Firstly, at the time of independence, India lacked sufficient financial resources to implement these principles effectively. Secondly, the country's diversity and the various levels of socio-economic conditions posed challenges that could impede their implementation. Lastly, recognizing that the newly independent state had many pressing issues to tackle, allowing flexibility in the order and manner of achieving these principles was seen as practical. By making directive principles non-justiciable, the Constitution's creators believed in the power of public awareness over legal enforcement. They felt that fostering an informed and active public would ultimately lead to greater fulfillment of these principles. A government's responsibility to respond to these principles is thus viewed through the lens of political accountability rather than legal enforceability. In summary, while directive principles of state policy are not enforceable by courts, they hold significant moral weight and are considered fundamental to governance in India. Through various articles in the Constitution, including Article 37, they continue to influence government policies and actions, reflecting the aspirations of the people for a just and equitable society. Criticism of the directive principles of state policy. The directive principles of state policy are important guidelines outlined in the Indian Constitution to help the government ensure social and economic justice. They aim to create a fair and just society for all citizens. However, these principles have faced some criticism from various members of the Constituent Assembly and political experts. Here are the main points of criticism. One major criticism is that the directive principles are not legally enforceable. This means that citizens cannot take legal action if the government does not follow these principles. Critics argue that this aspect reduces the effectiveness of the directive principles, as they can often be ignored or sidelined. For instance, Article 37 of the Constitution states that these principles are non-justiciable, meaning the courts cannot enforce them. This has raised concerns that the government may prioritize other obligations over these principles since there are no legal consequences for failing to implement them. Moreover, some critics believe that the directive principles may conflict with the fundamental rights guaranteed in Part 3 of the Constitution. While fundamental rights protect individual freedoms and rights, the state may impose regulations under the directive principles that could potentially infringe upon these rights. For example, the right to property, which was once a fundamental right, was limited by various laws under the directive principles aimed at economic justice. This has led to debates on how to balance these two sets of provisions effectively. Another point of criticism is that the directive principles can sometimes lack clarity and specificity. Some experts argue that the language used in these principles is broad and vague, making it difficult to implement specific policies. The interpretation of these principles can differ based on the political ideology of those in power, leading to inconsistencies in their application. For instance, Article 45 encourages the state to provide early childhood care and education for all children, but its implementation can vary widely depending on the government's priorities. Additionally, some critics feel that the directive principles could lead to an overreach of state power. They argue that when the government has the authority to regulate and control various aspects of life to achieve the goals outlined in the directive principles, it might infringe upon individual freedoms. This concern particularly arises from principles that involve significant government intervention in areas like economic planning and social welfare. Despite these criticisms, it is important to acknowledge that the directive principles of state policy play a crucial role in guiding the government towards building an equitable society. They reflect the aspirations of the people and serve as an ideal framework for governance. Articles 36 to 51 of the Constitution detail these principles, thus emphasizing the importance of social justice, economic welfare, and the promotion of education and public health. In conclusion, while the directive principles of state policy have faced criticism for their non-enforceability, potential conflicts with fundamental rights, vague language, and possible overreach of government authority, they still remain a vital part of India's constitutional framework. They aim to create a more just and equitable society, guiding government policies and helping to shape the nation's development. Understanding these principles, along with the legal context provided by the Indian Constitution, is essential for anyone interested in Indian polity and governance. The directive principles of state policy in India have often been criticized because they do not have any legal power behind them. This means that they cannot be enforced by the courts if the government fails to follow them. The wording and intent of these principles have led some to call them ineffective or insincere. For instance, K.T. Shah referred to these principles as pious superfluities, comparing them to a check from a bank that only gets cashed when there are enough funds available, implying that these directives can only be followed if the government has the resources to do so. Similarly, Nasiruddin compared them to New Year's resolutions that people often break shortly after making them. T.T. Krishnamachari went even further, describing the directives as a veritable dustbin of sentiments, suggesting that they are just clutter rather than useful guidelines. Casey Ware referred to them as a manifesto of aims and aspirations, arguing that they mainly serve as a moral guide rather than concrete legal obligations. Sir Ivor Jennings echoed this sentiment, labeling them as pious aspirations. The directive principles of state policy are outlined in Articles 36 to 51 of the Indian Constitution. They serve as guidelines for the government to create policies that aim to secure social and economic justice, promote the welfare of people, and reduce inequality. Even though they are not legally enforceable, these principles are essential because they frame the goals and responsibilities of the government. One important article, Article 39, emphasizes the right to an adequate means of livelihood, equal pay for equal work, and the protection of children against exploitation. Article 41 guarantees the right to work, education, and public assistance in certain cases. Moreover, Article 47 mandates the government to work towards improving public health and raising the level of nutrition. In practice, while these articles may not hold legal weight, they significantly influence the formulation of laws and policies in India. The government can draw inspiration from these principles to ensure they act for the common good, aiming to improve the quality of life for all citizens. Thus, even if they are considered aspirations, they form a crucial part of the framework for a more equitable society in accordance with India's constitutional vision. The directive principles of state policy in India are guidelines for the government to create laws and policies in a way that benefits the citizens, particularly focusing on social and economic welfare. However, some critics say that these principles are not arranged in a clear or logical order. For example, N. Srinivasan, an expert in this field, has expressed concerns that the directive principles are not properly classified. This means that important issues dealing with economic and social matters are mixed up with less significant topics. Furthermore, he notes that the guidelines blend modern ideas with older traditions, combining rational and scientific suggestions with those based more on feelings and outdated beliefs. Sir Ivor Jennings, another well-respected political thinker, also highlighted this lack of clear philosophy in the directive principles, indicating that the principles don't follow a consistent line of thought. This creates confusion about their purpose and how they should guide the government's actions. In the context of Indian law, the directive principles are primarily outlined in Articles 36 to 51 of the Indian Constitution. These articles set out various social, economic, and political rights that the government should aim to achieve. For instance, Article 39 emphasizes the right to an adequate means of livelihood for all citizens and to ensure equal pay for equal work, especially for women. Similarly, Article 41 states that the government should provide the right to work, education, and public assistance in cases of unemployment, old age, sickness, and disablement. While these principles are crucial for guiding state policies, they are not enforceable by law. This means that if a government fails to implement these principles, citizens cannot go to court to demand their enforcement. They serve as fundamental guidelines that should influence lawmakers when creating legislation. The mix-up and lack of logical organization pointed out by critics may complicate the task of policymakers, as they must navigate through these varied principles while prioritizing citizen welfare. For a more effective implementation of the directive principles, it is essential for the government to clarify and organize these principles more logically, ensuring that they can effectively guide laws and policies in a manner that benefits all citizens and promotes socio-economic justice. This highlights the ongoing debate around the practical effectiveness of the directive principles and their role in shaping a more equitable society in India. According to Sir Ivor Jennings, a respected constitutional expert, the directive principles of state policy in India draw inspiration from the political ideas that were prevalent in 19th century England. He specifically referenced the influences of Sidney Webb and Beatrice Webb, significant figures in the Fabian Society, which promoted a gradual and democratic approach to socialism. Jennings pointed out that the principles mentioned in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution reflect these ideas of Fabian socialism but do not explicitly promote socialism as we know it. The directive principles, enshrined in Articles 36 to 51 of the Constitution, outline the goals for the Indian state to achieve in order to promote social and economic justice. These guidelines encourage the government to work towards a fair society where all citizens have access to basic rights, education, and well-being. While Jennings acknowledged that these directives were relevant in India during the mid-20th century, he raised doubts about their appropriateness for the 21st century. In modern times, as India continues to evolve, there is an ongoing discussion about whether these initial principles still resonate in today's context. The challenge is to evaluate if the directive principles can adapt to the changing socio-economic landscape of the 21st century. For instance, as new issues such as climate change and digital equity emerge, it may be essential to reconsider how these guidelines function and whether they adequately address contemporary challenges faced by the nation. The Indian Constitution's articles not only establish these principles but also encourage the government to apply them while making laws and policies. For example, Article 39 mandates the state to ensure equal pay for equal work for both men and women and to protect children against exploitation. This shows a commitment to social justice and can inspire debates about gender equality and workers' rights in the context of India's rapidly changing economy. In summary, the directive principles are crucial in shaping the vision for social justice and welfare in India. While they were formulated based on the political thought of the past, as we move further into the 21st century, it is critical to reflect on their relevance and effectiveness in addressing current global and domestic issues. This reflection will help ensure that the Indian Constitution remains a living document that meets the needs of its people in changing times. Constitutional conflicts in India. K. Santhanam has highlighted that the directive principles of state policy can create conflicts within India's constitutional framework. These conflicts primarily arise in three key relationships: between the centre, the federal government, and the states, between the president and the prime minister, and between the governor and the chief minister at the state level. Let's explore each of these conflicts with detailed explanations. At the national level, the Constitution of India includes provisions that allow the central government to instruct state governments on how to implement various policies. This is outlined in Article 256 of the Constitution, which empowers the centre to ensure that states act in accordance with the laws governing them. However, if a state government fails to follow these directions, Article 356 allows the central government to dismiss that state government. This scenario highlights a potential conflict where states may feel their autonomy is being undermined by the centre's directives regarding the directive principles, which are guidelines for the government to ensure social justice and welfare. Next, let's consider the interaction between the President and the Prime Minister. The Indian Constitution, under Article 74, establishes that the President acts on the advice of the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. However, if the Prime Minister pushes a legislative bill that contradicts the directive principles, the President has the authority under Article 111 to withhold assent to the bill if he or she believes that the principles are essential for the governance of the nation. This situation could lead to a conflict between the President, who may uphold the principles, and the Prime Minister, who may prioritize political expediency or party loyalty over these fundamental guidelines. Similarly, at the state level, the relationship between the governor and the chief minister can also lead to constitutional conflicts. The governor has certain powers, including the discretion to act in situations where the chief minister's actions do not align with the principles laid out in the directive principles. For example, If the Chief Minister advocates for policies that are inconsistent with these principles, the governor may feel compelled to intervene, leading to friction that can destabilize the state government. The governor's role is outlined in various articles, including Article 153 and Article 174, which emphasize the responsibility of the governor in maintaining the constitutional framework of the state. In summary, the directive principles of state policy, while aimed at ensuring a just society, can lead to tensions within various branches of government, both at the center and in the states. The delicate balance of power defined in the Constitution is essential for maintaining harmony, yet the potential for conflict remains a significant element in the governance of India. Understanding these constitutional provisions helps illuminate the challenges policymakers face in adhering to the principles while respecting the autonomy of different governmental bodies. The importance of directive principles in the Indian Constitution. The directive principles of state policy hold significant importance in the Indian Constitution, even though they have faced some criticism. The Constitution establishes these principles as fundamental to the governance of the country. They are not just additional rules but are considered essential for achieving social justice and improving the lives of Indian citizens. L.M. Singhvi, a well-known legal expert, describes these principles as life-giving provisions of the Constitution, signifying their vital role in shaping the nation's policies and goals. M.C. Chikla, a former Chief Justice of India, believes that if these principles are fully implemented, India could become a true welfare state. In other words, the country would not only engage in political democracy but would also ensure the welfare of its citizens through economic initiatives. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who played a crucial role in drafting the Constitution, emphasized that these principles aim for economic democracy, which means that citizens should have access to economic rights and opportunities, in addition to political rights. Granville Austin noted that the directive principles aim to promote social change and provide the necessary conditions for achieving these goals. Sir B.N. Rao, who was an advisor to the Constituent Assembly, mentioned that the principles serve as moral guidelines for government authorities. They offer educational value as they remind the government of its responsibilities towards the citizens. According to M.C. Setalvad, a former Attorney General of India, the directive principles may not create legal rights or remedies, but they are useful in various ways. First, they serve as general recommendations for all authorities in the Indian Union, reminding them about the social and economic order that the Constitution aims to create. Second, they act as guiding principles for the courts in exercising their power of judicial review, a process that checks if laws are constitutional. Furthermore, these principles are a backdrop for all actions taken by the state, whether legislative or executive, and they complement the ideals outlined in the Constitution's preamble. The preamble pledges to secure justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity for all citizens. The directive principles aim to support these goals by addressing social and economic rights, filling gaps in what is provided under the fundamental rights listed in Part 3 of the Constitution. Their implementation can create a favorable environment for enjoying these fundamental rights fully. Without economic democracy, political democracy is less meaningful. The principles also empower the opposition parties, giving them a basis to critique the government's actions if they do not align with the directive principles. Moreover, these principles are vital for evaluating the government's performance. Citizens can reflect on the government's policies and programs against the standards set by these constitutional guidelines. In this sense, they serve as a common political manifesto, implying that any ruling party, regardless of its ideology, must recognize and adhere to these principles in its legislative and executive actions. In summary, the directive principles of state policy are a critical part of India's constitutional framework, guiding the state's actions and helping shape a more just and equitable society. while they may not have the same legal authority as fundamental rights, they provide a moral compass and a foundation for social justice, which are essential for the overall development of the nation. Conflict between fundamental rights and directive principles in India. The Indian Constitution lays down fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy, both of which aim to provide justice and equality to the citizens. However, there has been ongoing tension between these two sets of provisions since the Constitution was adopted. Fundamental rights are considered justiciable, meaning they can be enforced in a court of law, while directive principles are generally non-justiciable, meaning they cannot be enforced by the courts. Article 37 of the Constitution states that these principles are, nonetheless, fundamental in the governance of the country, and it is the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws. The conflict became prominent during the Champakam Dorairajan case in 1951, when the Supreme Court ruled that if there was a disagreement between fundamental rights and directive principles, fundamental rights would take precedence. This means that any laws or directives must align with the fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution. However, the court also stated that Parliament could amend these fundamental rights through constitutional amendments. Thus, to implement some directive principles, the First Amendment Act, 1951, Fourth Amendment Act, 1955, and 17th Amendment Act, 1964, were enacted to accommodate these changes. Subsequently, in 1967, the Golaknath case changed the dynamics once more. The Supreme Court decided that Parliament could not alter or diminish fundamental rights, stating that these rights are sacrosanct. This effectively meant that even for implementing directive principles, such amendments to fundamental rights were impermissible. In response to the Golaknath decision, Parliament enacted the 24th Amendment Act, 1971, which stated that Parliament has the authority to amend any of the fundamental rights by passing constitutional amendment laws. The 25th Amendment Act, 1971, introduced Article 31C, which included two significant provisions. First, it declared that laws aimed at implementing certain socialist directive principles specified in Articles 39b and 39c could not be challenged on the grounds that they violated fundamental rights such as Article 14, equality before law, Article 19, freedom of speech, assembly, and movement, or Article 31, right to property. Second, the Act ensured that no law passed for this purpose could be questioned in court for not achieving its goals. The legal landscape changed again in the Keswananda Bharati case, 1973, where the Supreme Court ruled that the second provision of Article 31C was unconstitutional because it undermined judicial review, a basic feature of the Constitution. However, the court upheld the first provision of Article 31C as constitutional. The 42nd Amendment Act, 1976, later expanded this provision to protect any laws related to the implementation of directive principles, not just those in Articles 39b and 39c. This effectively gave directive principles a superior position over some fundamental rights. However, this change was contested in the Minerva Mills case, 1980, where the Supreme Court reaffirmed that both fundamental rights and directive principles should be balanced and that giving one absolute dominance over the other would disturb the harmony of the Constitution. The court emphasized that these two sets of provisions must work in tandem and together form the basis of social change in the country. Therefore, while the status quo affirms that fundamental rights hold supremacy over directive principles, it is essential to recognize that one does not negate the other. The Parliament has the authority to amend fundamental rights to facilitate the implementation of directive principles, provided that such amendments do not harm or compromise the Constitution's basic structure. This nuanced relationship underscores the dynamic interplay between safeguarding individual rights and ensuring the government's accountability to its socio-economic commitments. Through this legal framework, the Constitution aims for a balanced approach to governance that upholds democracy and social justice concurrently. Implementation of Directive Principles in India. Since India became a republic in 1950, both the central and state governments have made various efforts to implement the directive principles of state policy. These principles, mentioned in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution, Articles 36 to 51, are guidelines that aim to ensure social and economic justice, the welfare of the people, and the overall development of the country. One of the major steps taken was the establishment of the Planning Commission in 1950. Its primary goal was to plan the development of the country systematically and effectively. The Planning Commission formulated a series of 5-year plans aimed at achieving socio-economic justice, thereby working to reduce income inequalities and provide equal opportunities for all citizens. In 2015, the Planning Commission was replaced by Niti Aayog, which focuses on promoting sustainable development through cooperative federalism. At the state level, land reforms have been enacted to transform the agricultural sector and enhance rural conditions. These reforms have included the abolition of intermediaries such as zamindars and jagirdars, tenancy reforms to provide security and fair rents to tenants, and imposing ceilings on land holdings. Any surplus land has been redistributed among landless farmers, leading to cooperative farming initiatives. In the realm of labor rights, various laws have been passed to protect workers. Important legislation includes the Minimum Wages Act of 1948, which ensures fair pay, and the Payment of Wages Act of 1936. Other key laws include the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act of 1986 and the Bonded Labour System Abolition Act of 1976. In recent years, the government took further steps to protect children by renaming the Child Labour Prohibition and Regulation Act, making it more stringent. Women's rights have also been supported through specific laws such as the Maternity Benefit Act of 1961 and the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976, which focus on protecting the rights and interests of female workers. The government has also aimed to utilize financial resources for the common good through initiatives like the nationalization of life insurance in 1956 and commercial banks in 1969. This was intended to enhance financial inclusivity and better serve the needs of the general populace. Legal aid for the disadvantaged has been strengthened through the Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987, creating a nationwide network to provide legal assistance at no cost. This network organizes Lok Adalats, which are special courts aimed at providing quick and accessible justice. To promote rural development, numerous programs have been launched. These include the Community Development Program established in 1952, followed by several others like the Integrated Rural Development Program in 1978, the Jawahar Rojgar Yojana in 1989, and the National Rural Employment Guarantee Program in 2006. These programs aim to improve living standards and create employment opportunities in rural settings. In terms of environmental protection, laws such as the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 and the Forest Conservation Act of 1980 were enacted to ensure the conservation of wildlife and forests. Moreover, the Water and Air Acts helped establish pollution control boards at both the central and state levels to tackle pollution and improve environmental conditions. The National Forest Policy of 1988 further underscores the commitment to forest conservation. Agriculture modernization has seen initiatives to provide better inputs like seeds, fertilizers, and irrigation facilities. There's also a focus on organizing animal husbandry effectively. the introduction of a three-tier Panchayati Raj system aims to empower local governance and translates Mahatma Gandhi's vision of villages being self-governing republics. The 73rd Amendment Act of 1992 has given constitutional protection to these institutions, ensuring grassroots participation in governance. Moreover, various laws and amendments have been enacted to protect marginalized communities, including the SC Cent, Prevention of Atrocities Act of 1989 and the Protection of Civil Rights Act. The 65th and 89th constitutional amendments led to the establishment of the National Commission for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes to safeguard the rights of these groups. In 2019, the central government introduced a reservation policy for the economically weaker sections, EWS, in educational institutions and government jobs, further broadening the framework of social justice. This was facilitated by the 103rd Amendment. The Criminal Procedure Code of 1973 made significant changes, ensuring the separation of the judiciary from the executive to maintain a fair justice system. As for historical preservation, the Ancient and Historical Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act of 1951 protects important national sites and structures. Throughout the country, primary health centers and hospitals have been established to enhance public health care, aligning with health-related directive principles. Despite these initiatives, the complete and effective implementation of the directive principles has faced challenges, such as limited financial resources, unfavorable socioeconomic factors, a growing population, and sometimes strained relations between the central and state governments. In summary, while significant strides have been made towards realizing the aspirations laid out in the directive principles of state policy, ongoing efforts and improvements are necessary to fully achieve the goals of social and economic justice in India. Directives outside Part 4 of the Constitution. In addition to the directives found in Part 4, which primarily covers the directive principles of state policy, the Indian Constitution includes several important directives in other parts as well. These directives play a significant role in ensuring the rights and welfare of different groups within society. One key directive relates to the representation of scheduled castes, SCs, and scheduled tribes, STs, in government services. According to Article 335 in Part 16, the government must consider the claims of SC and Cent members when making appointments to various services and posts. This ensures that these historically marginalized communities have a fair chance of participating in the administration, while also maintaining the efficiency of the government. Another important directive is highlighted in Article 350-A in Part 17, which stresses the need for education in the mother tongue. This article states that every state and local authority must strive to provide proper facilities for children belonging to linguistic minority groups to learn in their native language at the primary level. This is critical for preserving cultural identities and ensuring that all children receive a quality education in a language they understand. Furthermore, Article 351 in the same part focuses on the promotion and development of the Hindi language. It mandates that the Union government works to spread Hindi and develop it as a language that can express the diverse components of India's composite culture. This initiative aims to enhance communication and unity among the various linguistic groups in the country. It is important to note that these directives are non-justiciable, meaning that individuals cannot approach the courts to enforce these directives as legal rights. However, they have significant importance. The judiciary often emphasizes that all parts of the Constitution should be read together and that these directives are essential for achieving the larger objectives of social justice, equality, and democracy. In summary, the directives outside Part 4 of the Constitution address various aspects such as representation of SCs and STs, the importance of mother tongue education, and the promotion of the Hindi language. These principles reflect India's commitment to its diverse cultural heritage and the need to uplift marginalized communities while fostering unity and understanding among its citizens. Understanding these directives is crucial to appreciate how the Constitution seeks to promote an inclusive and equitable society.